Hello, friends, and welcome into another weekly update from our team here at North Carolina Family. Jerry Royal, Adama Manfra, Mitch Prosser here to jump into some news for this week ending Friday, February the 27th. Gentlemen, let's jump right in. The biggest story of the week, of course, is the State of the Union address from President Trump this past Tuesday night. Let's talk a little bit about some of the things that went on. Adama, about an hour and 49 minutes. Most people are saying the longest speech that's ever been given from that podium. Is that fair?
Or maybe ever anywhere.
Or ever anywhere. Some friends of mine and I were trying to figure out if it was going to be over or under 2 hours. And a couple of them were like over 2 hours. He said he had a lot to say. He did have a lot to say. There were several issues that he spoke to that we are deeply concerned about. One of those that he brought up, Jerry, is the issue and the current event issue of biological sex and how different people from different worldviews are treating this issue. Jerry, this has been a hot topic here in the state of North Carolina as well as nationwide for quite some time. Tell us what we need to know about what President Trump said and what's happened here in North Carolina.
Well, he did. And again, I read these things, didn't actually listen, but he highlighted, which I know they do in these addresses, they'll bring people to help tell a story. And in this case, he had a young lady who, earlier in her life, living in the state of Virginia, in her school, and I don't even like using the word, socially transitioned. She was struggling with her identity, was confused about that. And so they were taking action based on that in the school without the knowledge or consent of her parents. And then because of various dynamics, she ended up actually running away, was in the state of Maryland. She was taken into a home for boys. And apparently very troubling things developed there. Well, the story thankfully ended. She recognized who she really is in God's eyes as a female, a young lady, now, and I'm not sure she's clear if she's in it right now, full scholarship to Liberty University, but it's a story that touches on what we have thankfully addressed in North Carolina. In recent months, I know there's been some frustration about things that people want to and need to have happen, but I immediately went back and just to quickly touch on 4 laws that North Carolina has passed to address this very issue. It's obviously still very important in our country. 2023, Parents' Bill of Rights, saying that there needs to be parental consent before medical services are provided to children, and that parents are to be notified if a child has asked that they be seen addressed with different pronouns and things. North Carolina passes a clear law that same session, passed gender transition / minors law, which prohibits the chemical and surgical treatment of minors and prohibits any state funding going for any of these procedures. So 2023, then more recently in 2025, last year, North Carolina passed a law, one of them in part defining the terms male and female, another one saying that if parents do not affirm the confusion of their children, the parents cannot be charged with abuse or neglect. And then if you're a potential adoptive parent, that can't be a negative thing for you. So North Carolina, thankfully, has addressed this. But then, actually this week, another bit of news I saw, the state of Washington has passed a law to allow people to do what Maryland did, to bring children who've run away, whose parents don't consent to their confusion and addressing that and trying to affirm who they really are, that the state of Washington, now there's a case they want to go all the way to the Supreme Court to overturn that law. So it's still very much an issue right now.
So the young lady that you mentioned at the very top there, her name is Sage Blair from Virginia. Our friends at the Family Foundation, Victoria Cobb and her team with the Founding Freedoms Law Center, a guy named Josh Hetzler, actually stepped in and spoke on her behalf. And so we're grateful for the work that our sister organization there in Virginia is doing. Adamo, there's a lot of divisiveness around this topic right now, clearly. And that was evident in the room on Tuesday night at the State of the Union. Talk to us a little bit more, talk to those watching and listening right now about what that divide looks like and what hope there is in potentially overcoming that divide.
Yeah, so during the State of the Union, I did make the better or worse decision to watch it. President Trump, at the end of highlighting Sage Blair and her story, called on Congress to pass legislation similar to the one you started with, Jerry, that would at least prohibit the ability of a state entity for taking a child out of the home and transitioning against the parent's will. Calling for that, there was a very observable divide on how many people stood for supporting and cheering or applauding, however you want to describe it, a call for that action by the government. And I think that brings to clarity the importance of the things we do here, and your voice listening to this and speaking up on your for your own worldview to your representatives, both at the state and federal level. Because when we don't have people with this worldview in office, we end up with things like Maryland and Washington and Colorado and California, and the list goes on. Whereas when we elect people that share our values, or at least are answerable to our values, we can have laws like we pass here in North Carolina that protect our children both from this ideology, both from medical care. To call it medical care seems misleading anyway. And certainly protecting parents and the integrity of the family in dealing with this as a whole. And so we continue to support, of course, all legislation that would protect our children in these ways and protect families in these ways. And we're thrilled to have you watching and listening and being a voice for that as well, again, both at the state and the national level.
You know, one thing I'm encouraged by, states like North Carolina who are choosing to take the lead on these issues, is that we acknowledge a fundamental understanding that, you know, in fact, the best people to parents are parents. And so, of course, everyone wants to point to the exception of those rules, but we have to govern to that rule, that parents parent children best. And I'm encouraged by the legislation that you've pointed out, and we're going to continue to lead. We're going to continue to focus on meaningful legislation that focuses on protecting and enhancing family rights and family values here in North Carolina. That room, the Hall of Congress, the House of Representatives, not a very big room. It's relatively large in size, but it's difficult to fit all of the people in the room. They usually choose people to sit out. Of course, we know the designated survivor thing. But what was interesting was several of the people that President Trump mentioned, they were actually waiting in the hallway, and they had to be brought in. About 25 or so guys who may or may not have won a gold medal just a couple of days ago were one of those groups, the USA hockey team. This was one of the few moments where the entire room was standing. I think they were chanting. Were they chanting USA?
USA.
It was pretty cool. So sorry, Canada. Not really. Not sorry at all, Canada. Go America. And I thought that was a really cool moment. One of the other focuses was on the legacy of Charlie Kirk. Talk to us a little bit about what that looked like, and then the call to end political violence.
Sure. So President Trump had Erica Kirk, the widow of Charlie, there, and he took the opportunity of having her there to speak about what many are seeing indications of, early data on, nothing's conclusive, but a sense of revival, a sense of particularly young men coming back to the faith, and often being seen as associated with what some people have called the Charlie Kirk effect. But there's some evidence that some of the data was skewing that way even before his assassination. But it did provide the opportunity that the president was talking about a revival in faith and religion and Christianity and belief in God, and affirming that that's a good thing for our nation, which it always has been and continues to be. And then somewhat good news from the event, or one of the better moments, is that at the end of this moment in his speech, he said that this was an opportunity for all people to call on a rejection of political violence. And as far as I could tell in my watching, it was a pretty universal standing for a support, at least, of rejecting political violence. Whether they were also standing for happy to see a revival in Christianity, you can make your judgment on that. But that was a moment of more so unity across the room, which I think was good.
Of course, this was after another attempt on the life of the president this past couple weeks. So that we're certainly living in a time where there definitely needs to be a dial back, and people need to focus on what it means to speak meaningfully into the conversation and from a well-informed position. Jerry, speaking of things that we are currently tracking, following, and are extremely important, it is primary season. In fact, if you're watching this weekend, which would be the 27th, 28th, or the 1st, early voting is wrapping up on the 28th, and then primary day is the 3rd.
That's correct.
So,
yes. So, there's still time, to do homework, because I know it was a challenge for me. You can go to the State Board of Elections website, all you have to put in first name, last name, and county. It'll pull your name up, and then you can find under your name a sample ballot. You can see all the candidates who are going to be on the ballot. And I know from when I looked, I think every candidate had a website. Now, some of them were more informative than others, but it is a way that you can do some homework, try to find out who is the candidate who best represents your worldview, who you think will be doing the job that you think and believe needs to be done. So
that's excellent. We're actually going to make it a lot easier for you. If you're watching this from the email, there's a link right beneath the video. Words are hard sometimes. Right beneath the video, you can go to that link on our website, ncfamily.org, and you'll have all the information there. We encourage you, of course, to do research on who the candidates are to make sure you understand where they stand on particular issues regarding faith, the family, the home, and then pray about who you should vote for. And, of course, get out and vote, whether that's early, the 27th and 28th when you're watching this, or this coming Tuesday, March the 3rd. We've got a couple dinners coming up as we celebrate 250 years of America's independence from the crown, and of course our 35th anniversary here at North Carolina Family. Adamu, we're going to have Tim Barton with us on March the 23rd in Greenville. I'm really excited to have him, American historian, and I'm really looking forward to that. So we're just going to have a great time that night, and I'm again really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great. I hope those of you in the area are considering sponsoring a table and joining us out there. But we're definitely looking forward to the night. He's a very fitting speaker to be sort of launching our dinners this year as we are spending extra time reflecting on the heritage of our founding with the Declaration of Independence and our own fundamental principles and values and priorities here at the organization this year.
Very good. Well, Jerry, I think that about wraps up our video for this week. Thank you for watching our update video for this week ending February the 27th for our entire team here at NC Family. God bless you. We hope you have a great weekend.